What do you do when the man you called a temporary option is the one calmly handing you divorce and custody papers in front of both families? How did a simple phone call to my mum, on speaker, turn into evidence that a judge reads out loud while my little boy watches me break? Why did I think I could control the story when he was the one quietly recording everything? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Lenore Vale, and people always told me I could do better. I heard that line in my head as I stood at the kitchen counter, scraping plates into the trash. The apartment was quiet except for the soft clink of dishes and the washing machine humming in the hallway. Evan was in the living room, folding laundry like he always did on weeknights, slow and careful, matching socks and smoothing shirts. I kept thinking that this was exactly the kind of life everyone said I was too young for, too smart for, too pretty for. My phone buzzed on the counter. It was my mum. I answered and held it between my ear and shoulder while I rinsed a glass. I asked her how her day was, and she started talking about a client at the salon and some gossip. Then she asked, in that deep, careful tone, how things were between me and Evan. I looked toward the living room. I could see the back of his head over the couch, his shoulders a little hunched as he folded a towel. There was a small pile of Noah's tiny shirts beside him. I said we were fine, just busy. My mum said I sounded tired and asked if I regretted getting married so young. I told her sometimes I felt like I had chosen the safe option too fast, before I had a chance to see what else was out there. While she talked, I pressed the speaker button so I could use both hands. I did not even think about how voices carry in a small apartment. My mum said she always thought I could have someone more exciting than an IT guy who liked routine and meal plans. I laughed and said Evan knew he was a temporary option, like a safe harbor, until I figured out what I really wanted. I told her I had settled, like everyone warned me not to. The words felt light when I said them, like I was just making a joke to match her tone. My mom laughed loud enough that Evan could probably hear every breath. She said I had always been able to pull better men than this, that even in high school I had boys chasing me. She asked if there was anyone right now that I liked more, and I brushed that off, but my mind jumped to Dr. Hart without my permission. I thought about his hand on the small of my back in the hallway at work. I said, maybe I just wanted someone on a different level than Evan, someone more driven, more intense. My mum asked if I meant the dentist, the one I always mentioned. She said his name with a little smile in her voice. I said I was not saying that exactly, just that I finally understood what it meant to outgrow someone. I said I felt like I was changing and Evan was not. I told her he was a good dad and a decent man, but he was boring, and I felt like I was dying slowly in a beige life. While I talked, I heard the rustle of laundry stop in the living room. I did not look up. I kept talking. My mom continued to feed me lines, saying that modern women did not have to stay with the first man who treated them kindly. She said it was smart to keep my options open, that I should not feel guilty if my feelings changed. I said I knew that I was just being honest. I repeated that phrase to myself in my head, just being honest. A few seconds later, I felt the air in the room change. I glanced toward the doorway and saw Evan standing there, still holding a folded shirt in his hands. His face was blank, but his eyes were fixed on my phone on the counter, screen lit up with my mum's name and the little speaker icon. My stomach dropped for a moment. Then I pushed the feeling down. He did not say anything. He just stared. My mum asked if I was still there. I said yes and moved back toward the sink, turning on the water a little louder. I told her I needed to go because I had things to finish. She said she understood and reminded me I only had one life and should not waste it on a man I had outgrown. I said I would call her later and ended the call. There was a long silence. I turned around with a fake casual smile and asked Evan if he needed anything washed for tomorrow. He asked if he had heard me right, if I really said he was a temporary option. His voice was flat, not angry, just hollow. That made me more upset than shouting would have. I told him he had misheard, that my mom and I were just joking around. I said he always took things too seriously and looked for drama where there was none. He repeated the words temporary option, like he was testing them in his mouth. I rolled my eyes and told him people say stuff like that all the time when they vent. I reminded him that I stayed with him, so clearly I did not think he was temporary. I asked why he always had to make me feel guilty for having feelings. I said I could not even open up to my own mother without him listening and judging. He said quietly that I did not have to put the call on speaker in the middle of our home. I answered that it was my kitchen, my phone, my family. I told him if he did not want to hear what I really thought, maybe he should not eavesdrop. I knew that was unfair as soon as I said it, but unfair words are sometimes the only ones that make someone back off. I added that I was allowed to feel like I had settled. I said it did not mean I did not love him in my own way. He did not argue. He just nodded slowly, like he was filing away every word, then turned back to the living room and finished folding Noah's shirts. The calm way he moved made me even angrier. I thought a real man would have fought for me, would have grabbed me and demanded I explain what I meant. I told myself his quiet was another sign he was too weak for me, that he could not handle my truth. We put Noah to bed like usual. Evan read him a short story and tucked him in while I pretended to scroll on my phone, though I kept watching them from the hallway. I saw how Noah relaxed more under his dad's hand, and I felt a prick of jealousy. I pushed that away too. I told myself I was tired from work and from always being the one who had to carry all the emotional weight. Later, when the apartment was dark and Noah was asleep, I walked past the living room and saw a soft light coming from the guest room. The door was half open. Evan sat at the small desk inside, hunched over some papers. There was a folder in front of him with the word household written on a sticky note. His phone lay beside him, screen lit up with a small calendar box that I could read from the doorway. Downtown 11:15 a.m. Personal. I leaned on the doorframe and asked what he was doing. He said he was just sorting bills and making a plan in case anything changed. He said it in a simple, steady voice. I laughed and told him he was being dramatic. I said nothing was changing, and he needed to stop acting like I had threatened him. He looked at me for a long second, then turned back to the folder without another word. In that moment, I decided he was overreacting. I told myself he would calm down in a few days and go back to normal. I did not know that he had already started writing down the exact time of that call, the words I had used, and the way I laughed when I said he was temporary. I did not know he was already thinking about what he needed to do if I decided I was done with him before he was done with me. On Sunday, I woke up already annoyed. Evan moved around the bedroom quietly, putting on a plain blue shirt and jeans, like he was going to a job interview at a boring company. I lay in bed and watched him button each button so slowly. I thought he even dressed like an apology. I checked my phone and saw a message from my sister Sophie. She asked if I was ready for Mum's lunch and added a joke about how our mom would probably ask again why I had married so safe. I told Sophie that I might tell the speakerphone story at the table, just for fun. She replied that I should and added laughing emojis. She said our cousins would scream when they heard that I had called him temporary. I could almost hear her voice in my head, full of excitement. It gave me a little thrill. I liked the idea that people would see me as bold and honest, not weak and grateful. On the drive to my mum's house, Evan kept his eyes on the road. Noah sat in the back, singing to himself and kicking his feet. I watched the side of Evan's face. His jaw was set tighter than usual. I asked if he was angry. He said he was fine and just tired. I told him he should not bring bad energy to my mom's house. I said my family always tried to include him, and he should be thankful. He only nodded. My mom's house was loud as always. The TV in the living room was on. Some music came from the kitchen. The table in the dining room was full of food. My mum hugged Noah first and kissed his cheeks. Then she hugged me and gave Evan a quick pat on the back like he was a neighbour, not family. Sophie came in from the kitchen holding her phone. She said she had been waiting all week to see us and gave me a knowing look. We all sat down. There was chicken, salad, bread, and too many side dishes. My uncle started some story, but I was not listening. I was watching my mom, waiting. She loved an audience. After a while, the talk turned to relationships. One cousin complained about her boyfriend. Someone else said she was never getting married. My mom looked across the table at me and asked, in front of everyone, if I ever regretted marrying young. I felt all the eyes on me. I shrugged and said, I sometimes wondered what would have happened if I had waited. My mum told the table that I had always been able to get any man I wanted, even at school. She said everyone had been surprised when I picked someone so quiet and safe. There was a little silence. Then she laughed and said she had a funny story from this week. She told them about the phone call in my kitchen. She said she had asked how things were, and that I had called Evan my temporary option, a safe harbour, until something better came along. She opened her hands as if she was delivering a punchline on stage. People laughed. Sophie put a hand over her mouth and looked at me, pretending to be shocked, then laughed even harder. One cousin repeated the phrase temporary option and said it was the most honest thing she had heard all year. I watched Evan out of the corner of my eye. He sat at the end of the table, next to Noah, cutting the child's chicken into small pieces. He kept his face carefully neutral. He looked up only once, when my mom said I could trade up if I wanted to. His eyes met mine for half a second, then dropped back to Noah's plate. He did not say a word. The laughter burned and fed me at the same time. Part of me felt bad, but another part liked the power. For once, the story was about me, not about what a good father or good worker he was. It was my line, and they were repeating it. I told myself that if he wanted them to respect him, he should be more interesting. My mum asked Evan if he minded being called safe. She said a safe man was better than no man. She said he should be proud that I had chosen him at all. He gave a small smile that did not reach his eyes, and said safety was not a bad thing. He added that he only wanted his family to feel secure. Someone muttered that this was exactly what a placeholder would say. The table laughed again. After a while, the conversation moved on. They talked about work, money, and some neighbour's new car. I noticed Evan was quieter than usual, but I decided he needed to learn to take a joke. I made extra effort to be cheerful, to show everyone I was fine. I asked Noah how his food was, and told funny stories about the clinic. I even mentioned Dr. Hart once, saying he was so focused and driven that he made the rest of us look lazy. My mum made a small comment that men like that were more my style. Sophie smirked. When we finished eating, people spread out. Some went to the living room. My mum and I carried dishes into the kitchen. Evan stayed at the table with Noah, helping him draw on a napkin. In the kitchen, my mum said I was glowing and asked if something interesting was happening at work. I told her I just felt like I was waking up after years of sleep. She said it was natural to outgrow a man like Evan, and that I should not feel guilty if my mind was already halfway gone. I told her that Evan had heard part of our call that night. She gasped and asked what he had done. I said he had not done anything, that he had just gone quiet and started acting strange. She said that proved her point, that he was too weak for me. She said a real man would have either fought harder or left quickly. I felt a small twist in my chest, but I agreed with her out loud. Later, in the living room, I saw Lydia's name flash on my mum's phone. My mum hummed and let it ring a bit before answering. She put on her polite voice. I heard my name once, then Evan's, then the words joke and overreact. I guessed Lydia had heard some version of the story and wanted to check. My mum said into the phone that Lenore was just expressing her feelings, that young women needed to be honest, and that Evan should not be so sensitive. When she hung up, She rolled her eyes and told the room that his mother was always too serious. On the drive home, the car was quiet. Noah fell asleep in the back seat, his head leaning to one side. I scrolled through my messages and saw that Sophie had already posted a vague status about temporary options and starter husbands, with no names, just enough that people who knew us would understand. There were already comments and laughing reactions. I asked Evan why he had been so quiet at lunch. He said he did not want to argue in front of everyone. He added that being turned into a joke did not feel good. I told him he should relax, that my family was like this with everyone. I said if he could not handle light teasing, maybe he should not come to these lunches. I made it sound like a problem with his attitude, not with what I had said. He answered that there was a difference between teasing and calling your husband temporary in front of the whole family. I said he was twisting my words, that he knew I did not mean it literally. I reminded him that I cooked, cleaned, and kept our home together. I said if I really saw him as temporary, I would not be putting in that much work. He went silent again, hands gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. When we got back to the apartment, Noah woke up and shuffled inside, half asleep. Evan carried him to his room. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of wine. A few minutes later, as I walked down the hallway, I heard a faint click from the guest room. I paused and pushed the door open. Evan sat at the desk again. The same household folder was there, now joined by another one with a small sticky note that said, "Bank." His phone lay beside them, screen dark and face down. I noticed the top drawer of the desk was now locked. The little metal key was missing. I asked what he was doing. He said he was just making sure all our finances were in order in case things shifted. I laughed and told him he was being dramatic again, that nothing was shifting except his mood. I said he should focus on being a better husband instead of acting like a victim. He looked at me for a long, calm moment, then turned back to his papers. I told myself he was sulking and that he would come to his senses soon. I did not see that the more I belittled him, the quieter and more careful he became. At the clinic, everything felt brighter than at home. The waiting room smelled like mint and coffee. The computer screens glowed. Patients came in and out, all smiles and nerves. I sat at the front desk, typing in insurance details and checking schedules, and I felt like a different person. At home, I was a nagging wife. Here I was the face of the clinic, the one people saw first, the one they thanked on the way out. Around mid-morning, Dr. Hart walked up to the desk and leaned on it with his usual lazy confidence. He asked how my weekend was, in that low tone that sounded like he was talking only to me. I told him it had been loud and tiring at my mum's, that my family was still making jokes about me settling. He raised an eyebrow and asked what that meant. I said my family thought I could do better than a quiet IT guy who folds laundry. I did not say Evan's name. I let the picture speak for itself. He smirked and said some men were meant to be safe and in the background. He said some women were meant for more. He told me I was one of those women. I liked the way that sounded. It made my chest feel tight in a good way. I said he was too kind. He answered that he was just observant and that it was obvious I did more than my husband. I did not correct him. I liked that he assumed it. Every time he passed the desk that morning, he let his hand brush the edge near mine. In the break room, he stood too close when we poured coffee. His arm touched my shoulder while he reached for sugar. If anyone else had done it, I might have moved away, but with him it felt like proof that I was still wanted. I told myself it was harmless, just chemistry, just energy. At lunch, he asked if I wanted to join him at the cafe across the street. I told him I had brought my lunch, but he insisted. He said I deserved a break from routine. I liked the way he said deserved. So I went. We sat at a small table by the window, and he asked about my life in detail. He wanted to know how long I had been married, how old my son was, what my husband did. I gave short answers, and then I told him I sometimes felt like I had married my father, careful and cautious. I said I missed excitement. He paused, then said I did not seem like the kind of woman who would stay stuck if she did not want to be. I told him I was loyal. He said loyalty was overrated if the other person was not really your match. He asked if my husband made me feel seen. I said not really, that Evan saw me as a wife and mother, not as a woman. Dr. Hart smiled in a way that said he did not see me like that. I felt heat in my cheeks and told myself it was just the coffee. That afternoon, back at the clinic, I checked my phone and saw a message from Sophie. She asked if I wanted to go out with her and some friends on Friday, maybe to that rooftop bar she liked downtown. She added that I should bring someone more interesting than Evan for once. I laughed and told her I might ask some co-workers. I mentioned the plan to Dr. Hart in the hallway. He said that sounded like fun and that he might show up if he finished his paperwork. My heart jumped. When I got home that night, Evan was helping Noah with a puzzle on the living room floor. There was a faint smell of toner in the air and a thin line of paper scraps near the trash can, like the shredder had been used earlier. I asked how his day was. He said it was fine. He did not ask about mine. I took that as another sign he did not really care. I told him I might go out Friday with Sophie. He said he could watch Noah. He added that I should be careful with drinking. I rolled my eyes and told him he sounded like an old man. I did not mention that Dr. Hart might be there. Friday came fast. At work, I wore a dress that hugged me more than my usual clothes, and I put on a little more makeup. Carla, the office manager, raised an eyebrow and asked if I had plans. I told her I was meeting my sister, made it sound innocent. Dr. Hart noticed and said the dress suited me. He asked if we were still going to the rooftop bar. I said yes. He suggested we share a cab after closing. I hesitated for a second, then said that would be easiest. When we closed for the day, the clinic felt different, like a backstage area after a show. Lights off in the rooms, soft murmur from the cleaning crew. Dr. Hart came to the front with his coat over his arm. He asked if I was ready. We went down together. In the cab, he sat close. Our knees touched. He asked if Evan minded me going out. I said he did not care what I did, that he was more married to his spreadsheets than to me. It was not completely true, but it felt good to say it, to make myself look like the neglected wife. At the rooftop bar, the music was loud and the air was cool. The city lights spread out below us. Sophie ran over and hugged me, then noticed Dr. Hart and gave me a look. She asked if he was the famous dentist I was always talking about. I said he was just my boss. She laughed and told our friends that I had brought an upgrade. The group cheered and pulled us toward a big table. Drinks came quickly. Sophie ordered shots. Someone put their phone on the table and started a story recording of the group. I posed, hair over one shoulder, glass in hand. I felt free, light, almost young again. After a few rounds, the talk got louder. One of my friends asked where my husband was. I waved my hand and said he was at home, folding laundry as usual. People laughed. Sophie nudged me and said I should tell them what I had called him. The music pulsed in my chest. I felt all eyes on me. I said, with a shrug, that I had told my mum he was my temporary option, my starter husband. I added that some people were just practice rounds. The table howled. Someone repeated starter husband in a mocking tone. A friend lifted her phone to capture my face, and I tilted my head and smiled. I knew it looked cruel, but I decided honesty was worth it. I did not notice until later that one friend kept her phone up longer, filming not just me, but also Dr. Hart sitting close beside me, laughing, his hand on the back of my chair. At the time, it just felt like fun. I leaned toward him and said that at least he made me feel alive. He answered that he was honored to be my real option. We both laughed. It sounded clever then. When I finally checked my phone, I saw messages from Evan. He asked what time I would be home. He added that Noah had asked to say goodnight. I stared at the screen and felt a small sting, but I ignored it and typed that I would be late, that he should handle it. He replied with a simple okay. No guilt trip, no drama. Somehow that annoyed me even more. I told myself that if he really cared, he would come pick me up or complain, not just accept it. Hours later, when the group broke up, Dr. Hart walked me out. The air outside was cold and smelled like rain. He brushed my hair back from my face and looked at me in a way that felt like a question. I answered without words. I went with him. What happened after that does not need details. It crossed a line I had told myself I would not cross. In the morning, I sat on the edge of his bed and told myself it was just a moment, a mistake that did not erase my whole marriage. When I got home, Evan was in the kitchen making pancakes for Noah. There were dark circles under his eyes. He asked if I had fun. I said it was fine and that I had crashed at Sophie's. He only nodded. Later that day, when he went to take out the trash, I glanced into the guest room. His laptop was open on the desk. For a second, I saw a spreadsheet with dates and short notes next to them. A small message popped up in the corner. File uploaded successfully. Then he walked back in and the screen went dark. The next Saturday, the sky was clear and too bright. Evan said we should take Noah to the playground. I almost said no, but Noah heard the word park and ran to get his shoes. I did not want to look like the bad guy in front of my own child, so I agreed. The playground was busy with families. Kids ran around the slides, and parents sat on benches with coffee cups. Evan pushed Noah on the swing, steady and careful. He counted each push like it was a serious task. I sat on a nearby bench, scrolling through my phone, checking if anyone had posted new photos from the rooftop night. Sophie had uploaded a clip to her story. In it, you could hear my voice calling Evan my starter husband. You could see Dr. Hart sitting close beside me, leaning in while I laughed. Sophie had added text over it that said she finally admits it. My chest tightened, but I told myself it was fine. It was just our sense of humor. Only people who already knew us would get it. Evan stopped the swing and looked at his phone. He typed something, then called Noah over. He asked what day his preschool teacher had said the parent meeting was. Noah tried to remember, then pointed to a little paper tucked in his backpack. Evan took it out, checked the date, and added it into his phone calendar. He also asked if I had the pediatrician's number saved. I said yes. He asked me to send it to him so he had it too. I asked why he needed all that suddenly. He said he just wanted to be prepared in case he had to handle things by himself one day. He said it calmly, watching the kids. The words pricked at me. I told him he was being dramatic and negative again. I said families went through rough patches all the time. I told him he should try to fix things, not plan for disaster. He said he was trying to fix things, and that part of fixing was knowing where everything was. I rolled my eyes and said only anxious people thought like that. I added that if he put half that energy into making me feel wanted, maybe I would not feel so restless. That last word slipped out, but I did not take it back. He just nodded and went back to pushing Noah. On the way back to the car, I walked a bit ahead. I heard two women from the playground talking behind us. One said something about that dentist video she'd seen online. The other laughed and said the woman in the clip was cold but funny as hell. For a second, I wondered if they were talking about me, but I decided that was impossible. The city was big. I was not that important. That evening, we were due at Evan's parents' house for dinner. I did not want to go, but Lydia had insisted. She had called earlier in the week and asked to see Noah. Her voice had sounded different, more formal. I told Evan she probably wanted to lecture him about being distant. He did not reply. At their house, the air felt heavy. Lydia hugged Noah for a long time, then hugged me politely. Robert shook my hand. We all sat in the living room. The TV was off. There were cups of tea on the table, untouched. I smoothed my dress and smiled too brightly. I wanted to set the tone. Lydia asked how things were at home. I told her we were fine, just busy, like always. I said Evan had been a little moody, but that was normal stress. Evan looked at her, not at me. He said things had been tense. He added that some comments had been hard to hear. Lydia's eyes moved between us. I felt my face warm. Before anyone could say more, there was a knock on the door. My mom's voice came from the hallway as Lydia let her in. I was surprised and annoyed. Lydia had not told me she invited my mother. Maris walked into the living room like it was her stage. She kissed Noah, hugged me, and gave Evan and his parents that bent smile she kept for people she did not fully respect. She said she thought it was better if everyone talked like adults. She sat down and started telling the story of the lunch at her house, the way she had at her own table. She described how I had called Evan my temporary option and how the family had laughed. She acted it out, showing how I had shrugged and stirred my drink. She made it funny for herself. I watched Lydia's face. With each detail, her lips pressed tighter. When my mom got to the part about trading up, Lydia raised a hand. She thanked my mom for coming, but said she did not find this story funny. She said that calling your child's father temporary in front of a room full of people was cruel. Maris waved her off, saying it was just honesty and that I was allowed to feel I had married below my potential. I jumped in and said my mum was right, that modern women were expected to be grateful no matter what. I said it was normal to feel like you had settled if you married young. I added that Evan had been distant and that I felt unseen, like I was just an appliance in his life. I wanted Lydia to feel sorry for me. I wanted her to see me as the one in pain. Lydia looked at Evan and asked if he had been distant before or after hearing those words. He said quietly that things had changed after. He said it was hard to be warm to someone who made a joke out of his whole life. Robert spoke for the first time, saying he had seen a short video online where I called my husband a starter husband in front of other people. My heart jumped. I asked what video he meant. He said a cousin had shown it at a barbecue, laughing. He said it hurt to see his son's name dragged into that kind of talk. I felt attacked. I said this was exactly what I meant, that everyone was focusing on one phrase instead of everything I did for the family. I said no one cared about my feelings, that I was suffocating in a life that did not fit. I told them Evan had not touched me the way I needed in months, that he acted like an old man. I wanted to push the blame away from myself. If they saw him as cold, they would understand why I looked elsewhere. Lydia shook her head. She said marriage was not a game where you tried people on until one felt exciting enough. She said if something was wrong, you worked on it or ended it with respect. She looked straight at me and said, "Mocking your spouse in public said more about you than about them." My chest burned. I said she was judging me because I was not like her. I said her generation stayed in dead marriages and called that noble. My mom jumped in to defend me. She said Lydia was old-fashioned and that women now had more choices. She repeated that I was special and that I should not be chained to someone who could not keep up. Lydia's eyes flicked to Noah, who was sitting on the floor with a toy car, very quiet. She said the only change she cared about right now was the one tying this child to two parents who needed to grow up. The room went silent. Evan finally spoke. He said he appreciated everyone's honesty and that he now understood how they saw him. He said he would not argue about self-worth or potential. He said his main concern was Noah and stability. He added that he had been writing things down and keeping track, not to punish anyone, but to make good decisions later if he had to. I laughed directly at that. I told him he sounded like he was collecting evidence for a trial. I said he was acting paranoid. I asked if he planned to sue me for hurt feelings. He did not laugh. He said he was just tired of words drifting away and being called sensitive whenever he remembered them. He said he wanted a record. A little later, Lydia asked to speak to Evan in the hallway. My mom took the chance to whisper that I should think about leaving first before he did something stupid so I could control the story. She said I had the looks and age to start over. She said men like Evan would always be there if I needed to fall back again. Her words settled in my mind like smoke. When Evan and Lydia came back, his face was calm. almost too calm. Lydia said we all needed to be careful what we said around Noah, and that they would not sit through any more jokes about him being temporary. Maris rolled her eyes. I said I felt attacked in this house. I said it was funny that everyone was so worried about Evan's feelings, but no one seemed to care about mine. Later that night, back at our apartment, the mood was cold. Noah fell asleep quickly after the long day. I walked past the living room and heard a murmur from the coffee table. Evan's phone sat there, screen down. A small red light blinked next to the edge of the case. I frowned and stepped closer. I asked if his phone was on fire or something. He came from the hallway and picked it up before I could touch it. He said it was nothing, just an app. I asked what kind of app needed a red light. He said it helped him remember what people said, so there were no more misunderstandings. He looked straight at me when he said that. My throat went dry for a second, but I pushed the feeling away and told myself he was bluffing. Monday started badly and kept getting worse. The clinic was already busy when I arrived. Phones rang, patients checked in, the smell of mouthwash and coffee mixed in the air. I tried to slip into my usual role, the smiling receptionist who made everyone feel calm, but I could feel eyes on me. A dental assistant walked past and gave me a quick look, then looked away. Another girl at the desk pressed her lips together like she was holding back a comment. Around 10, Carla, the office manager, came to the front and asked if I could step into her office for a minute. She did not say it like a question. My stomach tightened. I followed her down the hall, feeling like a child being sent to the principal. In her small office, she shut the door and sat behind her desk. She asked how things were going. I said they were fine, busy but fine. She nodded, then said there had been some concerns brought to her attention. She used that careful tone people use when they are trying to sound neutral but are already judging you. She said there was a video floating around on social media of a rooftop bar gathering. She asked if I knew what she was talking about. I knew, of course. I shrugged and said people recorded everything these days. She said in the video I was clearly joking about my husband being a starter husband, and that I was sitting very close to Dr. Hart. She said some people thought it did not look professional. I snapped that what I did on my own time was my business. She said she agreed in general, but when doctors and staff mixed in a way that could look like favoritism or conflict, it became the clinic's business. She added that a patient had followed Dr. Hart on social media, seen the clip, and asked if something was going on. She said that could hurt the clinic's image. I felt my face burn. I told her it was just a joke, that my family and friends knew our sense of humor. I said my marriage was my problem, and that Evan understood our dynamic. That last part was a lie, but I said it with confidence. If you sound sure, people usually stop asking questions. Carla did not stop. She said this was not about my marriage, but about how it looked mixed with my relationship with my boss. She asked very gently if there was anything more than a work relationship between me and Dr. Hart. I laughed and said we were just friendly. I asked if someone had filed a complaint. She said there had been comments. She said she needed to remind me of the policies, and she slid a printed sheet across the desk. I did not really read it. My eyes kept going back to the words concerns and professional boundaries. I felt cornered, so I did what I always did when my back felt against the wall. I looked for someone else to blame. I said maybe my husband had called and tried to cause problems because he was insecure and controlling. I said he had been sulking since he heard me vent to my mom and that he wanted to punish me. Carla blinked and said there had been no call from my husband. She said this came from inside the clinic and from what people saw online. That made it worse. It meant I could not place this on Evan as neatly as I wanted. Still, when I left the office, I told myself it was his fault anyway. If he had made me feel wanted, I would not have needed to joke like that. If he had come out more, I would not have gone to the bar with coworkers. It all led back to him in my mind. When I passed Dr. Hart in the hallway, he gave me a thin smile, not his usual warm one. I asked if everything was okay. He said Carla had spoken to him too, and that he needed to be more careful. He added that he did not want drama. That stung. I said I was not drama, I was honest. He said honesty was fine, but that the clinic could not afford bad stories. He sounded more like a boss than a man flirting with me. A small part of me felt foolish. By the time I got home that evening, the anger had piled up. Evan was in the kitchen, stirring a pot. Noah sat at the table, drawing. The air smelled like tomato sauce. It should have felt cozy, but it just made me feel trapped. I asked Evan right away if he had called my work. He looked surprised and said no. I pressed him, asking if he had complained to anyone about me and Dr. Hart. He said he had not, that he did not know any of my managers. I said someone had clearly tried to ruin my reputation and that it was very convenient it happened now, after everything. He said quietly that maybe it was not about him at all, that maybe it was about my choices. I snapped that he sounded like Carla. I said he was supposed to be on my side. I told him I was doing my best to feel alive, that I had given up a lot for this family. I reminded him of my early 20s and all the things I had not done because I married him. I wanted him to feel guilty, to see me as the one who had sacrificed most. He listened, stirring the pot, and then said he understood I had regrets. He added that regret did not give anyone the right to disrespect their partner. He said he was tired of being the joke in every room. He said he could not unhear temporary option from my mother's speakerphone or start her husband from that video. His voice stayed calm, which made every word land harder. I accused him of planning to leave and make me the villain. He did not deny it. He just said he was planning to protect himself and Noah. He said he had meetings set up to learn what his options were. I told him he was being dramatic again, acting like I was some danger. I said if he walked out, everyone would see him as the quitter, not me. That night, after Noah went to bed, I heard drawers opening and closing in the guest room. When I walked in, Evan was unpacking a small suitcase into the dresser. A stack of folded t-shirts sat on the bed. His laptop was open on the desk, a simple file view on the screen. I saw folders named Archive A and Archive B, neat and clean. A single USB drive lay beside the keyboard with a date written on a small piece of tape. I asked if he was moving out. He said no, he was just moving into the guest room for now. He said he needed space to think and to sleep. I said he was punishing me. I told him he was abandoning his marriage over a joke and a few feelings. I raised my voice, asked how he thought this would look to Noah. He answered that it would look like his father was setting boundaries instead of letting himself be humiliated. The fight pulled us into the hallway. Noah came out of his room in his pajamas, rubbing his eyes. He asked why Daddy had a suitcase. I dropped my voice fast and said Daddy was just being silly. I told Noah everything was fine. Evan knelt down and told him quietly that he loved him and that they were all okay. They just needed some time to sort things out. He did not look at me when he said it. When Noah was back in bed, I cornered Evan in the doorway of the guest room. I told him he was breaking our home over his pride. I said men all over the world dealt with worse and still stayed. I told him he should be trying to win me back, not moving away from me. He listened, arms crossed. Finally, he said he was done trying to win someone who called him temporary. He said he would not yell or throw things or cheat back. He said he would handle it properly. Those were his exact words, handle it properly. He added that from now on, everything would be by the book. He said it quietly, not as a threat, just as a decision. I rolled my eyes and said he was acting like a lawyer. He replied that he had spoken to someone who helped him understand what he could do. That sent a cold little wave through me, but I refused to show it. I said lawyers were expensive and that we could not afford his midlife crisis. He said some things were worth spending on, especially when a child was involved. The next morning, while he was in the shower, his phone buzzed on the nightstand in the guest room. I went in to tell him breakfast was ready and saw the screen light up. A notification from his calendar sat there. Meeting, personal, Wednesday at 3 p.m. Below it, I saw it was a repeating event. Another banner showed an upcoming reminder labeled paper drop. Curious, I opened his contacts and scrolled. There was a new entry with no name, just a little scale emoji. When I tapped it, I saw a work number with an office tower address downtown. My heart skipped. I locked the phone and put it back exactly where it had been. When Evan came out, hair damp, he looked at the phone, then at me. I smiled and asked if he wanted coffee. He said he was fine and reached past me to take his mug from the opposite counter. I noticed now that he kept his mug separate from mine, on the far side of the kitchen. 2 mugs, 2 corners. He thanked me for breakfast in a polite tone you would use for a stranger. I told myself he was playing a game, that he would come crawling back once he realized I could still leave if I wanted. I told myself I was the one with real options. I did not say out loud that, for the first time, I felt like he might actually be the one leaving first. The family dinner was at a restaurant near the courthouse. Evan sat opposite me, both families watching. A stranger walked up, said my full name, and handed me an envelope. Inside, divorce papers, temporary custody to him, move-out date for me, screenshots of my own words as exhibits. Evan just said, very calm, that this was by the book today.